for Li Changgong to get a one-on-one chance against the Centipede Queen. Li Changgong clenched his long swords tightly in both hands and began to stare intently at the powerful enemy in front of him. The first thing to do is to find its weak spot. As long as I know where its weakness is, I can kill it with just one strike. Li Changgong made up his mind. He activated 6 realms without distance and instantly rushed towards the Centipede Queen, turning into a phantom and slashing down with both swords. The Centipede Queen's body twisted violently. Its seemingly huge body was incredibly agile, dodging both swords at strange angles. Screech! The Centipede Queen opened its mouth wide and suddenly sprayed a viscous green liquid at Li Changgong's back. Li Changgong instantly pulled away, and the ground where he had been standing melted into a large pool, sending wisps of white smoke into the air. It's highly toxic and extremely corrosive. Li Changgong made his decision in an instant, but the Centipede Queen's energy shockwave reached him in the next moment. Li Changgong crossed his swords and slashed in a cross pattern, breaking the powerful energy wave in the middle and turning it into 4 beams that shot toward the Centipede Queen. Boom! 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 The cave shook violently, and Li Changgong leaped into the air and attacked the Centipede Queen again. He swung his swords even faster, unable to suppress the impatience rising in his heart. The original plan was to use their numerical advantage to kill the Centipede Queen as quickly as possible, but they had let the situation drag on to this point. If the Centipede King appeared, they would immediately be at a huge disadvantage. But Li Changgong had forgotten one thing. His pride and joy, his ability to destroy anything, had never been used against an Epsilon-level mutant beast before his battle with Zhang Yi. Even with his powerful abilities, he had no experience fighting a mutant beast with an ability index of 16,000, which made it difficult for him to make the right decisions in battle. Having already tasted the power of I Am Heaven's Will, the Centipede Queen did not dare to face Li Changgong head-on, and her huge body quickly moved around on the ground. Li Changgong pursued relentlessly, slashing at the Centipede Queen's huge body with one strike after another. Puff! 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 The Centipede Queen's body was torn open, and blood spurted out, but it continued to move and twist its body, and Li Changgong's attacks only caused superficial wounds. Moreover, with its super-fast regeneration ability, it could quickly repair its own injuries. Puff! The Centipede Queen was in pain and turned its head to spit out a large amount of poisonous liquid. Li Changgong instantly pulled away. The Centipede Queen's huge body lashed the ground, smashing the rock layers underground into huge boulders. Screech! The Centipede Queen wrapped the boulders around its body and threw them at Li Changgong. Li Changgong narrowed his eyes and slashed the air with his twin swords, cutting the rocks into pieces. This was immediately followed by the Centipede Queen's destructive sound wave. Li Changgong had no choice but to pull away again and leap into the air. The ground where he had just been standing had turned into a desert. Li Changgong used the flying cloud steps several times to adjust his position in the air, then looked down at the Centipede Queen from above. But suddenly, he saw an indescribable expression on the insect's face. It was a kind of mocking expression. Li Changgong's face was filled with horror. The uncanny valley effect made him unable to bear this human-like expression. Damn bug, what are you laughing at? Li Changgong dove down and slashed downward with both hands. The Centipede Queen quickly twisted her body to dodge the attack, and where the double swords landed, there was not a single mark left on the ground. This time, the Centipede Queen had figured out Li Changgong's attack pattern. It swam away, then turned back, aimed at Li Changgong, and spat out a large amount of corrosive poison. Li Changgong didn't dare to touch this poison. His combat suit couldn't withstand such high-intensity corrosion. After all, even the rock layers underground could be corroded through. So he had no choice but to move. However, after he dodged, the Centipede Queen attacked again. Li Changgong was not Zhang Yi. He could only stay in the air for a short time before he had to return to the ground. The Centipede Queen turned the surrounding ground into a large swamp of highly toxic and corrosive liquid, leaving him with fewer and fewer places to land. Before he knew it, the offensive and defensive positions between the man and the beast were tied. The Centipede Queen was not weak. The Qinling region had rated her ability index as high as 16,000 points, which was no joke. Li Changgong had been attacking for a long time without success, while Han Shanzhua, who was in another direction, was getting a little impatient. "Go Chen, are you going to do it or not? If we drag this on any longer, what if that 18,000-point Centipede King comes back? We're done for." Li Changgong was also locked in a fierce battle at this moment. The Earth Centipede in front of him was smarter than he had imagined. Although it had been slashed many times by Li Changgong, the Centipede Queen finally discovered the flaw in Li Changgong's ability. That was that Li Changgong had no good way to deal with its destructive sound waves and poisonous attacks. As long as it continued to attack with these two methods and kept its distance from Li Changgong, it didn't have to worry about being slashed. It was in no hurry to fight Li Changgong to the death because this was the Underground Kingdom, its territory. It wouldn't be long before the Centipede King returned, and then the two invaders would be dead. Li Changgong recalled what he had said earlier, and his face suddenly felt like he had been slapped hard. The insects were not stupid. Seeing that Li Changgong did not respond, Han Shanzhua lost his patience. He chose to contact Zongyue and Zhang Yi. At this moment, the two who were still waiting deep in the cave received Han Shanzhua's message. They glanced at each other, then chose to open the communication channel. "Hello, Luya, this is Jin Yuanzi and Chaos is here. How's it going over there?" Han Shanzhua took a deep breath. "We're in a bit of trouble. We can't take down that big bug in a short time. Come and support us quickly. Otherwise, when its husband comes back, it will be even harder for us to fight." A smile appeared in the eyes of Zhang Yi and Zongyue, but they were also feeling emotional. The Earth Centipede was indeed not as easy to deal with as they had imagined. No wonder the Qinling region was being so cautious in joining forces with other regions. Zhang Yi thought to himself, this Yuan stone vein was indeed not so easy to obtain. I knew the Qinling region would not make a losing deal. We'll be right there. After ending the call, Zhang Yi first gave instructions to his people. Flower, stay together and don't split up. Safety first. Everyone received Zhang Yi's instructions and immediately responded, got it. Zhang Yi glanced at the battle. Although Earth centipedes were still pouring out, many of them were returning to support the Centipede Queen, which was under attack. Therefore, the pressure here was not particularly great. The human elite forces were well prepared and should not encounter too much trouble. Now, they only needed to slash the two epsilons to quickly end the chaos here. Han Shanzhua and Li Changgong knew that time was of the essence, and Zhang Yi and Zongyue knew it too. Although Han Shanzhua and Li Changgong were disappointed that they couldn't get a bigger share, neither of them were stupid. They knew the importance of priorities. So they asked Zhang Yi and Zongyue for help. Zhang Yi and Zongyue didn't hesitate for a moment. After briefly instructing their men, they quickly rushed towards the Earth Centipede's lair. Zhang Yi opened the dimensional gate and took Zongyue directly through space to avoid being blocked by the Earth Centipedes along the way. Before long, they passed through the intricate tunnels and arrived at a huge underground cave. After entering the cave, the two discovered that the battle was not going well. There were too many Earth Centipedes here. These were the offspring of the Centipede Queen, who had devoured a large amount of Yuan stone veins. They had shells as hard as iron and many were born with powerful fighting abilities. In addition, many of the adults were as strong as captains, which caused a lot of trouble for Han Shanzhua and Li Changgong. With them holding them back and the Centipede Queen still around, it was indeed not easy to defeat them. However, with Zhang Yi and Zongyue joining them, the situation was completely different. Seeing them arrive, Li Changgong and Han Shanzhua immediately showed joy on their faces. You're finally here, hurry up and get to work. Zhang Yi looked around and found that this was the center of the Yuan stone vein, or at least a large source. It should be where the Centipede Queen and the Centipede King had broken through and left for the Centipede Queen to reproduce. The corners of Zhang Yi's mouth involuntarily turned up. Good, let's get to work. He said to Zongyue, I'll take care of these small monsters. You go help Gochin kill the centipede queen. Although Han Shanzhua was capable of dealing with large swarms of insects, as a giant beast, he was actually somewhat restricted underground. Moreover, his main fighting style was close combat, so it was difficult for him to deal with such a large number of insects with hard shells. Therefore, if it came to clearing out the small monsters, Zhang Yi was the best choice among the four of them. Zhong Yue nodded, "All right." Han Shanzhua didn't suspect anything. After all, there wasn't much to gain from clearing out these small monsters, so the two of them rushed straight towards the centipede queen. Zhang Yi looked at the countless small monsters in the cave and the yuan or scattered everywhere, his eyes flashing with a bright light, the symbol of money. He took out 2 white eagles. After being upgraded by Liu Karen, the 2 guns had become slightly larger, but their weight had decreased. He aimed the thick barrels directly at his surroundings, and his spiritual domain covered a radius of 3 kilometers, allowing him to observe the movements of all the earth centipedes within his mind's eye. Then, the muzzles of the 2 guns suddenly burst forth with terrifying power of the void, shooting at the surrounding swarm of insects. In an instant, 2 craters several kilometers in diameter exploded in the middle of the swarm. Not only did it kill tens of thousands of earth centipedes with a single blow, it also blew the ground to pieces, exposing the yuan stone veins beneath the surface. Zhang Yi remained calm and continued to kill them while collecting the earth centipede corpses and yuan stone veins into his dimensional space. He also collected the remaining colored insect eggs on the ground. The earth centipedes screeched and attacked Zhang Yi. All kinds of energy beams and poisonous liquids were fired at Zhang Yi, but they were all absorbed by his dimensional space. Zhang Yi fired continuously with his 2 guns, one on the left and one on the right. He didn't even need to aim, as he destroyed the underground cave while killing the swarm of earth centipedes. Boom! The entire cave shook from his attacks. If it weren't for the fact that they were underground and the rock and soil were particularly tough, he would have collapsed the cave long ago. However, Zhang Yi wasn't just looking out for himself. He was not far from Han Shanzhua and the others, protecting them. Any earth centipede that tried to get close to interfere would be taken care of by Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi did his job well in providing cover, but when it was time to make money, he didn't hold back. The other 3 didn't have time to pay attention to Zhang Yi. The 3 of them had surrounded the centipede queen in the center and started to strangle her. Zhong Yue's abilities were not affected at all underground. Like the earth centipede, he could exert his abilities to the fullest in this environment. He put his hands together, and thousands of stone pillars extended from the ground, the cliff walls, and above their heads, crisscrossing and trapping the earth centipede in the center. The centipede queen rampaged left and right, but she couldn't destroy all of the supernatural stone pillars in a short period of time. Han Shanzhua was responsible for distracting her. Caw-caw! The crow's cries accompanied the omen of disaster, continuously transforming into magical power that bound the earth centipede's movements. Li Changgong finally had the opportunity to use his ability. While the centipede queen was unable to move, he flashed past with 6 realms without distance and slashed down fiercely. "I can't cut off its head, so this time I'll split it in half and see if you can still live." The centipede queen sensed the danger, but she was held back by Zhong Yue and Han Shanzhua and couldn't dodge Li Changgong's sword. So she raised her head, aimed at Li Changgong, and emitted a wave of sound that destroyed everything in its path. Li Changgong didn't flinch or dodge, but held his sword with both hands and slashed down fiercely. He split the space in front of him with one sword, and the sound wave was smoothed out by this sword. With his other hand, he slashed at the centipede queen's head. The centipede queen couldn't dodge in time and frantically twisted her body to avoid it, but the sword still slashed diagonally down from her waist. Pfft! Li Changgong's sword was like cutting tofu, splitting it diagonally in half. Bang! Bang! The 2 halves of the centipede queen fell to the ground, but soon a foul-smelling liquid began to ooze from the broken parts, and a new body began to grow. Zhong Yue and Han Shanzhua rushed over. Zhong Yue transformed into a stone giant and held down half of its body, while Han Shanzhua's bird claws grabbed its upper body, which was writhing incessantly. Li Changgong took a deep breath and disappeared from where he stood with a whoosh. His figure was as fast as lightning, rushing past the Centipede Queen's body, his two longswords slashing down like phantoms, cutting it into pieces. In an instant, the Centipede Queen was cut into more than 100 huge pieces of flesh. Zhang Yi had already collected a lot of Yuan stone veins, including some earth centipedes, which fed on Yuan stone veins and contained powerful energy, so it would not be a waste to collect them. Seeing that the Centipede Queen had been killed, he quickly flew to the scene, ready to participate in the division of the spoils. The huge Centipede Queen lay sprawled on the ground, like a huge train, with pieces of flesh still writhing. Li Changgong's sharp gaze swept over these corpses and discovered that the flesh in the middle section had begun to rapidly grow limbs. Without hesitation, he threw the long sword in his hand at it, and with a puff, the corpse was pierced through. After the four of them worked together, they finally slashed the Centipede Queen to death. However, although they said they slashed it to death, when Li Changgong flew over and cut open the bloody flesh, he saw a huge, vibrant heart that was still beating desperately, as if it was unwilling to accept such a fate. From the heart, the four could feel a powerful life force, but without a body, it was rapidly dying, and large amounts of green blood gushed out from the blood vessels, forming a small pool. Zongyue walked over, took a metal box from his body, pressed a button, and it turned into a sealing device, sealing the heart, which was taller than a person, to prevent the loss of energy. After the operation is over, we'll discuss how to divide it up. Everyone has no objections, right? Zhang Yi and the other three were naturally very tempted. The origin of a 16,000-point mutant beast was extremely rare. But they also knew that it would be difficult to give it up, and arguing about it here might lead to a fight. It would be better to divide it up after they got out. Even if they didn't get the origin, they could still get a valuable Yuan stone vein. Zongyue had stated right away that he would give up the origin, so everyone felt most comfortable letting him deal with the others. But what about the Centipede King? Where did it go? Zhang Yi frowned and voiced his question. The battle had been going on for more than 10 minutes, and the energy fluctuations were enormous. It was impossible for the Centipede King not to sense it in the vicinity. But the Centipede Queen was dead, and the Centipede King still hadn't appeared, which was undoubtedly very strange. Han Shan's rubbed his chin. Could it be that it knew we were coming and ran away? Zhang Yi said, that's unlikely. If the Centipede King was here, we wouldn't have been able to slash the Centipede Queen so easily. As the king, fleeing without a fight is not in line with the Centipede clan's way of doing things. Zongyue also fell into deep thought. Yeah, unless there's something more important than their own clan. Li Changgong wiped the blood off his sword and looked at the huge corpse of the Earth Centipede Queen in front of him, his face full of the satisfaction of slashing a powerful enemy. In any case, this is a good thing. If the Centipede King appears, I can slash it to death too. But just as he finished speaking, the entire underground cave suddenly began to shake violently. The ground shook, and the rock ceiling above their heads shattered with a loud crash, sending large pieces of rock falling down, mixed with fragments of Yuan stone veins flashing with blue light. Boom! Behind them, there was a deafening roar, and flames shot into the sky, the dazzling red light making it almost impossible to open their eyes. Accompanying this was an intense heat that was almost unbearable. Even though their combat suits could regulate temperature, this heat clearly exceeded their limits. Fortunately, Zongyue had used steadfast armor on all four of them, providing them with shields as heavy as mountains, which prevented them from being affected by the extreme heat. What's going on? The four of them cautiously looked behind them and saw the mountain where the Centipede Queen had been perched violently shaking, and then spider web-like cracks appeared on the mountain. Burning flames mixed with ashes shot up into the sky, and magma gushed out, flying in all directions like bullets. An underground volcano, said Zongyue. Zhang Yi raised his hand and everything under heaven surrounded the four of them. All the falling rocks and magma were perfectly absorbed into the dimensional space. If it was just an underground volcanic eruption, it wouldn't be a big deal for the four epsilons. However, what followed was a deafening, terrifying screech. Puff! A huge red head burst out of the crater, its body wrapped in magma, yet completely unharmed. The small part of its body that was exposed from the crater was almost as long as the centipede queen, and its thick, long limbs clung to the crater as its body slowly crawled out. The two front limbs were as huge and sharp as a crab's claws. The moment he saw that thing, Zhongyue's expression changed. The centipede king. But how did it become like this? It's the centipede king you were talking about. The expressions of the three people also became extremely serious. Is this still the thing we saw before? They had seen what the centipede king looked like in the images provided by the Xinjiang region. Although the centipede king was much larger than the centipede queen, it was only about 200 meters long. But the huge creature in front of them was covered in scorching magma and was at least 500 meters long. The most terrifying thing was the sense of danger it gave off, which far exceeded that of the centipede queen. Zhang Yi took a deep breath and said coldly, "Is this still the 18,000-point centipede king?" The centipede king crawled out of the crater, its body immersed in magma, red as fire. The magma flowed out rapidly, flooding the entire cave. It was like a demon crawling out of hell, giving the four epsilons a tremendous sense of oppression. Especially when it discovered that its mate had been cut into pieces, it let out an incomparably angry roar. Kesh! It raised its head high, then aimed its huge mouth at the four of them, and a red energy quickly gathered in its mouth. In the next moment, a long ray shot towards the four of them. Zhang Yi didn't hesitate. He was the fastest and dodged it directly. Although Li Changgong's reaction was half a beat slower, he used the ability of 6 realms without distance to pull away a kilometer. Han Shanzhua and Zhongyue were a little slower, and despite their best efforts to dodge, they were still grazed. They were protected by Zhongyue's shield, but even with the shield, it was shattered in large pieces, and Han Shanzhua's arm was almost cut off. The slender ray instantly pierced through the thick rock layer, and with just one strike, it pierced a passage several thousand meters long deep into the earth. Boom! The entire cave shook violently, as if it couldn't withstand such terrifying power. This blow made everyone's faces turn extremely solemn. This destructive power, how can it be an 18,000-point mutant beast? It's at least 20,000 points. Zhang Yi looked at Zhongyue. Is this how you gather intelligence in the Xinjiang region? Zhongyue's expression was also very serious, his eyes dark and inexplicable. A month ago, it definitely wasn't like this. Zhongyue wasn't lying about this, because Zhang Yi and the others had seen the video of the battle at that time, so it couldn't be fake. Then there was only one explanation: the Centipede King's strength had skyrocketed in the past month. No wonder the Centipede Queen had been guarding that mountain pass all along. It wasn't just to hatch the larvae, but also to protect the Centipede King. A question flashed through Zhang Yi's mind. What did this thing get underground that allowed it to progress so rapidly? Could it be the mysterious substance beneath the Qinling Mountains? Something similar to the Source of God or the Origin Elves? The sudden appearance of the Centipede King did not surprise anyone. However, what weighed heavily on Zhang Yi and the other three was that its ability index had now reached at least 20,000 points. That was 4,000 points higher than the Centipede Queen. This was undoubtedly unexpected for the four of them, and a difficult battle was coming. But at this point, they couldn't possibly retreat. It was the first time they had seen a monster with an ability index of 20,000. However, the four of them joining forces wasn't without a chance of victory. Zhang Yi was the most calm. Even if they lost this battle, he had a way to escape. The Earth centipede was adapted to the underground environment and couldn't survive on the surface for long, so he wasn't afraid of it chasing after them. Everyone, let's fight. Kill it. Zhongyue said in a deep voice. Zhang Yi rushed to the place where the Centipede Queen had just fallen and directly stored her huge body in his dimensional space. Mutant beasts of this level had many treasures on their bodies, which would be great to take back for research. In particular, if it weren't for Li Changgong's ability to restrain it, it would take a lot of effort for Zhang Yi and the others to break open its shell. Seeing this, the others didn't know what to say. They had originally planned to send someone down to collect it after the battle. But now, with the Centipede King's appearance, they wouldn't have a chance, and everything in the cave would probably be destroyed, so they let Zhang Yi take it. Zhong Yue's right hand was still holding the sealed giant heart. He thought for a moment and said to Zhang Yi, "Chaos, put this in your space too." After he finished speaking, he threw the Centipede Queen's heart directly at Zhang Yi, who accepted it without hesitation. They still had to fight, and the others couldn't fight the Centipede King while carrying a huge heart. The convenience of space abilities was fully demonstrated at this moment. However, the Centipede King would not give them any time. His home had been destroyed and his mate had been killed, causing the king of this underground kingdom to fly into a rage. Without the Centipede Queen, he would have no suitable mate and would be unable to produce excellent offspring. This was an immense blow to the entire tribe. Krah! The energy beam was like a long, narrow blade, piercing through space and sweeping towards the four of them. The huge underground cave was cut in half and was on the verge of collapsing. The four of them had already adjusted to combat mode, but no one dared to easily block the Centipede King's attack. Zhong Yue manipulated the earth and rocks to form huge pillars to surround the Centipede King, trying to replicate the method he had used against the Centipede Queen earlier. However, the Centipede King only swept them aside with a single ray, and they all crumbled into powder. Zhang Yi took out the White Eagle and used everything follows the trail to lock onto the Centipede King's huge body. Without the slightest hesitation, he launched the most powerful attack available to him, Halberd of Doom. With helpers around, there was no need to waste time slowly testing it. He would use this move to test its defense and reaction speed. The two guns joined together, and a huge dark void halo appeared behind Zhang Yi. Endless void power clung to the White Eagle like a dark, viscous tide. Then, he aimed at the Centipede King and unleashed an earth-shattering blow. The muzzle was aimed at the Centipede King's current position, but after the bullets left the barrel, they would turn in midair through the dimensional gate and aim at the Centipede King's position 2 seconds later. If one had never experienced this move before, no one could quickly grasp its secret. The Centipede King was no exception. It sensed the power of this move and had no intention of taking it head-on. Its huge, twisted body was extremely agile, and its muscles twisted as it dodged the initial trajectory of the Halberd of Doom. However, it did not expect that the attack from the gun barrel could change course midway. Boom! The Halberd of Doom struck the Centipede King's body head-on, aiming for its waist and abdomen, which was the origin of its power. Only by destroying that area could the Centipede King be killed. Zhong Yue and the others stared intently at the Centipede King. They were still shaken by the power of this move and didn't know how much damage it would cause to the Centipede King. The Halberd of Doom created a huge dark space where the Centipede King was. But after a moment, the dark space disappeared, and everyone saw a scene that made their scalps tingle. Zhang Yi's strike had indeed caused effective damage. They could clearly see that the Centipede King's waist and abdomen had been corroded to a pulp, with blood and flesh flowing everywhere. But at the same time, a powerful life force spread throughout the Centipede King's body, and its wounds were healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. By the time Zhong Yue and the others could see clearly, its body had returned to its original state. Was my attack not powerful enough? Zhang Yi frowned, but he quickly denied this. After mastering the power of the void, he had made up for his lack of attack power, and this move was definitely a nightmare for mutants of the same level. But the Centipede King's defense was too strong, and with its terrifying recovery ability, unless its origin was destroyed in one fell swoop, it would be impossible to kill it in a short period of time. A meaningful smile appeared on the corner of Li Changgong's mouth. Looks like I'll have to do it after all. Zhang Yi raised his eyebrows. Oh? Is that so? Zhong Yue said, this guy's defense is too strong. He was able to survive in magma, so ordinary means won't kill him. Right now, let's have Gochin as the main attacker, and the rest of us will help him create conditions for the attack. Zhang Yi didn't say anything. This big guy was indeed difficult to deal with. Caw! Han Shanzhua transformed into a giant calamity crow, and black feathers fluttered in midair. The law of the omen of disaster bound the Centipede King, greatly limiting its reaction speed and physical strength, and even slowing down the speed at which it could use its supernatural abilities. Go Qin! Han Shanzhua roared. Li Changgong leaped into the air and swooped behind the Centipede King. I already know where your weak spot is. With this sword, I'll send you to your death. As long as Li Changgong's sword struck, even the strongest defense would crumble and be cut in two. But just as he appeared behind the Centipede King, its body shook violently, and a large amount of magma surged up from deep within the earth and shot into the sky. The sudden change caught Li Changgong off guard, and he had to dodge the magma. At that moment, the Centipede King's head broke through the magma, twisted its body, and bit down. The Centipede King was too fast. Li Changgong wanted to slash off its head with one sword strike, but it dodged the blade and bit his body at a strange angle. Pfft! Li Changgong's left arm, along with the long sword made of Edelman alloy in his hand, was bitten off in one bite. The sword didn't hold out for long before it shattered into dozens of pieces with a crack. The intense pain caused Li Changgong's face to turn pale in an instant, and he almost fainted, but he still managed to hold on with his strong willpower. Zhong Yue stamped his feet on the ground, and countless rocks enveloped his body. Zhong Yue transformed into a rock giant hundreds of meters tall and rushed to the Centipede King's side, punching it fiercely and sending it flying. This saved Li Changgong's life. He quickly pulled away and injected a drug to stop the bleeding. One of Go Chen's arms was bitten off, blood flowing freely, causing his face to turn pale. He had no choice but to quickly retreat and recover. Zhang Yi said in a deep voice, "The difference in strength is too great." The difference between 20,000 points and 16,000 points was not insignificant. Even with them distracting the Centipede King, it didn't mean that Li Changgong could easily slash it to death. The Centipede King's combat awareness was quite strong. It only needed to dodge fatal blows, and then it could kill Li Changgong in seconds with its absolute strength and speed. This mutant beast, which could survive in underground magma, was one of the strongest creatures in the world. Zhong Yue knocked the Centipede King flying, and its giant body, more than 500 meters long, flew thousands of meters away, then stood up unscathed. A laser like a scalpel shot at Zhong Yue, cutting through his pride and defense, and almost cutting off his head. Chaos! Zhong Yue shouted to Zhang Yi. Among the four, Zhang Yi was the best defender. Zhang Yi frowned slightly, raised his hand, and everything under heaven turned into huge dimensional gates that blocked everyone in front of them. The Centipede King raised its terrifying head, and the ray from its mouth instantly pierced through space and arrived in front of the dimensional gates. Without a sound, more than a dozen gates were blown to smithereens. With just one strike, Zhang Yi sacrificed 13 dimensional gates. Han Shanzhua flapped his wings and said with a tingling scalp, "Caw. How are we going to fight this? This thing's attack power is too fierce, and it's so resilient." Zhong Yue said in a deep voice, "We must destroy its source." He turned his head to look at Li Changgong, who was in a very sorry state at that moment, his arm torn off and his face pale. Fortunately, his combat suit could automatically repair itself and inject him with healing medicine and spare blood plasma, preventing him from going into shock. The injuries were easy to deal with. Many mutants with medical abilities could regenerate their bodies. There were such mutants among their companions. However, they had to deal with the problem at hand first. The 20,000-point Centipede King made them feel an unprecedented sense of oppression. "Go Chen, are you okay?" Li Changgong said in a low voice, "I'm fine. But this guy's reaction speed is too fast. It spotted me before I could get close. This makes it a little difficult to win with a sneak attack." Zhong Yue took a deep breath and said, "We'll create an opportunity for you. It's still up to you to deliver the final blow. Don't worry, if we really can't kill it, we still have a last resort." As he said this, a flash of cruelty crossed his eyes. This remark made Zhang Yi, Li Changgong, and Han Shanzhua look at him. "Are you going to use the Reaper of Love?" Zhong Yue said, "That's our last resort." The Earth Centipede tribe was growing at an alarming rate, and the Xinjiang region couldn't allow them to continue to exist. Even if it meant destroying them along with the entire abyss, they would do whatever it took. Of course, that was a last resort. If Zhong Yue and the other three confirmed that they couldn't complete the task, or if their lives were in danger, then they would resort to that final measure. Zhang Yi said indifferently, "Then let's do it." With his absolute defense ability, he was much calmer. If Zhong Yue really intended to use the Reaper of Love, he could use his own ability to take everyone away. He just hadn't told the others about this. Chaos, lead the way. Understood. Zhang Yi's eyes were fixed on the Centipede King. His everything follows the trail ability had locked onto the Centipede King, allowing him to predict all of its movements within 2 seconds. With this, he alerted Han Shanzhua, Zhong Yue, and Li Changgong, allowing them to dodge the Centipede King's attacks. Han Shanzhua became desperate and quickly swooped down from the air, rushing towards the Centipede King. Zhong Yue also used millions of tons of rocks as armor and transformed into a rock giant, charging towards the Centipede King. Zhang Yi didn't hold back at this moment either. He opened countless dimensional gates to cover for them. At the same time, White Eagle was also ready to launch an attack at any moment. However, the Halberd of Doom could not be used casually, even for Zhang Yi at this moment, as it consumed a great deal of energy. His trump card had to be used at a critical moment. Li Changgong injected himself with a variety of drugs before his physical condition slowly returned to normal. He held a long sword in his right hand, his eyes extremely serious. At medium and short ranges, his killing power was absolute, but he was not strong at long range, and his defense was average. Therefore, he couldn't rush. He had to wait for his teammates to create the right opportunity for him, and then kill with one strike. The appearance of the Centipede King had a huge impact. As the sole ruler of the entire species, only it could command all the Earth centipedes. Now it had emerged from the volcano and summoned all the Earth centipedes lurking in the abyss. In the huge sinkhole of the abyss, Flower, Lianyu, and the others were still fighting against a large number of Earth centipedes. Although this battle was a bit troublesome, it wasn't particularly difficult. After all, apart from Uncle Yu and Fatty Sue, all the other mutants who had made it here were the strongest elites from each region, all of them powerful beings with ability indexes above 9,000. However, with the Centipede King's call, the abyss suddenly began to shake violently. The tremors came from the rock walls, and the rumbling sound was like war drums being beaten. Lianyu looked around, and the intense tremors reached her ears, causing her to clench the dragon's roar in her hand. What a strong tremor. It feels like thousands of soldiers are coming. Deng Shintong used his hook lock to suspend himself in midair. He did not participate in the battle because his main role at this moment was to provide light for everyone, which was much more useful than his combat ability. Hearing Lianyu's words, he frowned. Could something have happened on their side? All the mutants could feel the violent tremors. A moment later, one after another, huge Earth centipedes quickly climbed up from the endless darkness below the abyss. This batch of Earth centipedes looked significantly different from the previous batch. Most of them had strange colors, some were dark blue, some were deep purple, and even their shells were like metal. The strength of the Earth centipedes bred by the Centipede King and the Centipede Queen was determined by their own strength and the nutrients they consumed. Therefore, the later they were born, the stronger their offspring would be. The rock walls of the abyss reached tens of thousands of meters underground, but at this moment, they were densely covered with those terrifying Earth centipedes. Even the captain-level mutants of the 4 major regions couldn't help but look serious. Tian Fengyi swung the black iron staff in his hand and said in a deep voice, "We must handle this ourselves. We can't cause trouble for the 4 leaders." Not far from him, a snow-white mutant beast with 4 furry tails bared its teeth and emitted a cold voice from its mouth. "We know that. Let's have a competition and see who can kill more." This was Hu Mengfan, the leader of the 5 immortals from the northeast region. His ability was to transform into a giant demon fox. What are we waiting for? Let's go! Even on the steep rock wall, Tian Fengyi's speed did not slow down at all. As the captain of the Dragon Guardians of Ghost Valley, he had been here for more than a year and was very familiar with the terrain. As a giant ape, he was already accustomed to climbing and jumping on steep cliffs. He moved across the rock wall as if it were flat ground, swinging the heavy black iron rod in his hands with a whistling sound. With a force that could split mountains and rocks, he aimed at a purple earth centipede several dozen meters long and swung down fiercely. Seeing this, the earth centipede swung its claws and charged forward. Clang! There was a sound like two chariots colliding, and Tian Fengyi was sent flying several thousand meters away. He used the force to hook himself onto the rock wall with his grappling hook. The earth centipede didn't fare any better. Its claws shattered with a crack, and its huge body crashed into the rock wall behind it with a boom. Tian Fengyi's pupils suddenly contracted. He didn't expect that even his full force couldn't kill this guy. What strong defense! Is this the earth centipede that grew up eating yuan stones? Hu Mengfang said, isn't that even better? That way, their entire bodies are treasures, and killing them will allow us to absorb even higher quality energy. The four-tailed demon fox he had transformed into opened its mouth wide, and a ball of green supernatural energy quickly gathered in its mouth, then shot out violently toward the ground. Under the sweeping gale, it turned into a huge tornado, directly tearing hundreds of earth centipedes from the rock wall and sending them falling into the endless abyss. In the northwest region, Sky War God Chenglanlan transformed into a peregrine falcon. She wasn't very big, only as tall as a person, and looked so small that she was easily overlooked just by looking at her size. It was hard to imagine that a beast-type ability user could be so small. But when she launched her attack, the destructive power she displayed was jaw-dropping. Her fighting style was extremely simple. She used her sharp claws and bird beak, coupled with her extreme speed, to slash and kill the Earth Centipede clan. When she flapped her wings, no one could see her movements clearly. Only with the help of the light reflected from Deng Shentong's release could they see her leaving long, thin, thread-like traces in the air, as if she had cut through space. Wherever she passed, the Earth Centipede's bodies were neatly cut in half. Many of the broken bodies didn't even have time to fall before she picked them up and brought them back to the elevator to put them away. Seeing how powerful the people from other regions were, the few people from the Jiangnan region didn't want to fall behind. At least that's what Liang Yu and Uncle Yu thought. With the Mecha Liu Karen built for him, Uncle Yu could temporarily wield an attack power comparable to that of a captain. However, this effect was short-lived because weapons would eventually run out. Therefore, even if he wanted to rush out and kill the enemy, he had to consider the actual situation and dare not stray too far from his team's position. As for Fatty Su, well, his main ability was still to provide support and control the battlefield from a distance. So strictly speaking, the main fighting force of the Jiangnan region was Liang Yu and Flower. Watching the increasingly fierce battle below, those powerful Earth Centipedes joined the battlefield and gave the mutant beast army a lot of pressure, so they couldn't choose to stay out of it. Flower finally began to show his power. As a 9,800-point mutant beast, it was actually more powerful than the others. This was a difference in talent. After unlocking its genes, its talent ceiling was Epsilon, which was an advantage that the other mutants present could not match. The power of gluttony gave it the ability to fight continuously in group battles, like a perpetual motion machine. Liang Yu, Uncle Yu, come up, Flower said to the two using the translation device. Uncle Yu and Liang Yu jumped from the rock wall onto Flower's back, and Flower spread its wings and dove straight towards the Earth Centipede clan below.